How then can a thing, if it's an attribute of God, knowledge is an attribute of God, how can it be blameworthy at the same time? If it's knowledge, how can you have blameworthy knowledge? He says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْعِلْمِ لَا يُذَمُّ لِعَيْنِهِ. Knowledge is never blameworthy in and of itself. It's not blameworthy in and of itself, but it's blameworthy because of three reasons. The first one is that it leads to some harm. So the knowledge itself becomes harmful. For instance, sihr, magic, tilasmat or tilsamat, the talismanic magic. And he said, وَهُوَ حَقٌّ إِشَّهِدَ الْقُرْآنُ لَهُ. And this is a reality because the Qur'an has testified to it. And it's a reason, it's a means by which you can affect a marital relationship. وَقَدْ سُحِرَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَمَرِضَ بِسَبَبِهِ. The Prophet ﷺ himself was put, there were, the naffathati fil uqad, and they breathed 11 times onto it. 11 is one of their numbers, because they're very into numerology, and 11 is one of the numbers that you will find. Aleister Crowley has a lot about 11 and the power of 11. So it's a very, November is a very important month for them. And that's why Halloween, right, is on the cusp of it's the end of the 10th month, and the witching hour is actually moving into the 11th month. So when they did they blew on the nuts 11 times, so Allah gave the Prophet 11 verses to counter that magic. And so the Mu'awwidhatayn have, if you count them, there's 11 verses. And this counters the magic out there. So the magic is a blameworthy knowledge, and people learn it. There are people that study it. Now in the West, it's spread. If you go into the bookstore, there's all these books on magic, how to put spells on people, how to do things, teaching people all of these occultic sciences and things like that. So, and trust me, you would be shocked at people involved in magic in our society. There's people there are famous people heavily involved in this stuff. You would be amazed at who does this stuff. A lot of actors are heavily involved in it, incantations, musicians and others. So what he says is, here's what he says, that magic, and this is important as a definition, magic is a type of knowledge that people learn the essences of things and what those essences can do. And that's why in reality, and this is what Arthur C. Clarke said, when you get into higher technology, it becomes indistinguishable from magic. So a lot of what we're dealing with in this world, these people would have looked at it as magic. The nuclear bomb is a magical device because it's understanding the khawas of jawahir. It's understanding the nature of essences, like the nature of the neutron and the power that can be unleashed. And how do you do it with these incantations, mathematical formulae that enable them? And this is, I understand the problem with this, because there's people who are going to say, well, this is knowledge. That's the whole point. It is knowledge. It is knowledge. That is the point. But why is it being used, and what is it used for? Because these things are extremely dangerous. So this idea somehow that Muslims, this is a pre-modern or primitive idea. No, it's very real. These things are very real, learning these things. And this is why many of the scientists in the medieval and in the late, the Renaissance period and the Enlightenment period were involved heavily in magic. And you can study this in the history of it. They were very interested in alchemy, and all of these sciences came out of these occultic sciences. So there's a relationship between very, very sophisticated sciences and magic. That's the point. And he said also bi umuran hisabiyya, so mathematical formulae, fi matali' an-nujum, dealing with also with positions of planets. فيتخذ من تلك الجواهر هيكل على صورة الشخص المسحور ويترصد له في وقت مخصوص. They will also take images of a person and wait for specific times. وَيُقْرَنُ بِهِ كَلِمَاتٌ يُتَلَفَّظُ بِهَا مِنَ الْكُفْرِ وَالْفُحْشِ الْمُخَالِفِ لِلشَّرْعِ. And they'll learn incantations. وَيُتَوَصُّلُ بِسَبَبِهَا إِلَى الْإِسْتِعَانَةِ بِالشَّيَاطِينِ. And they will, through this, gain help from this demonic realm. ويحصل من مجموع ذلك بحكم إجراء الله تعالى العادة بحكم إجراء الله تعالى العادة. And Allah, this is an ada also, all right? So it's something Allah has habituated things. And He said, from this will come أحوال غريبة في الشخص المسحور. Very strange things can come out of this. So there's a lot of magic going on, right? And a lot of people are literally under what I'm trying to say is that, because it's very difficult to understand this properly. What I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of what's happening today is in this realm. And it's very difficult for people to understand this. But when you study it, what you find is that a lot of the people involved in mass control are actually heavily involved in this science. And that's what you find out when you do the research. Many of the people that are involved in film, many of the people involved in music, many of the people that are involved in newscasting, they know how to manipulate the minds of people. And whether it's done with this type of magic or simply with the power of technology and the higher magic, the result is the same. You get people that are as if they're possessed. And this is why it would be indistinguishable. We've got kids that are stabbing children. We've got people that are just shooting people and not knowing why they're doing these things. And this is coming out of a culture that is really, really profoundly disturbed in its essence, because no civilization that was healthy would produce the type of games that they're exposing these young children to. No civilization that was healthy would produce the type of films where they have films where the main character tortures people and chops off their fingers and their hands, or slowly tortures them to death. Muslims would have never come up with these type of ideas, because their culture is not a demonic, dark culture. It's become demonic and dark because of a lot of madness that's happened in the Muslim world. I mean, there's a lot of demonic, dark things going on, and these people are really. Dostoevsky called his book about the terrorists the possessed, and in one translation it's called the demons. I don't know the Russian word for it. But he certainly understood that there was something demonic involved in this. So that's, it's difficult for people to deal with this stuff, but when you actually find out about the characters that were involved in producing a lot of this technology, and you read the history of it, you find that they were really involved in a lot of these things, which is very strange. And when you see the result that these things have on people and the effect that they have on them. So, I don't know, Arthur C. Clarke, who said that advanced technology becomes indistinguishable from magic, was involved in magic. He was involved in numerology. It's very strange that they place these satellites at 22,000 feet, because those are their numbers, 11, 22, 33. They like multiples of 11 and things like this. So I don't know. We're all trying to work this thing out, aren't we? But these things are real, and jadoo, whatever you want to call it, it's real. And that's why and I'll tell you something just personally. For me, I didn't really give a lot of this credence, because I wasn't raised like this. I was raised, my father was a college professor. I certainly wasn't raised with the idea, like magic was something, I thought magic was pulling rabbits out of hats and things like that. When I became Muslim and I heard all these things, and I didn't really, it wasn't really something. But in the last few years, it's become much clearer to me how much this is actually a force working in the world. And it makes much more sense to me now why there are so many hadiths and so many protective du'as against this stuff. You know, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. This is evil. And also, أعوذ بكلمات من همزات الشياطين. You know, the influences of the demons. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَنْ يَحْضُرُونَ, or that they should become present. You know, so the demonic realm is real. And there are people, unfortunately, that are actively involved in attempting to bring that realm into this realm. And this is where it gets very strange. So, and they're certainly into numerology. It's a big thing with these people. So he's warning us and saying that this is madhmum. So that's a harmful knowledge. The second reason he said is that is harming other people. So the knowledge is used to harm other people, right? And people do this. They just had a woman, got 6 years in England. She got fired. That fired her, so she started putting on internet that she had rape fantasies. She wanted somebody to come to her house and pretend to rape her, and she gave her boss's number who fired her. You know, I mean, there's a lot of sick people out there, right? And they're just, you know, you're working with people like that. We've got pedophiles, we've got rapists, we've got sociopaths, and these people are demonic people. You know, that really, they're people that, and Imam al-Ghazali says that they've actually given the shayateen al-jinn a rest. Like they're doing so much work now, the shayateen al-ins, that the shayateen al-jinn are just kicking back and watching it all happen. So there's a lot of demonic forces. Now, whatever you want to call this, if you want to call it magic or whatever you want to call it, these are terms for phenomena in the world. That's the point. And obviously it becomes very difficult because magic is totally haram in Islam. But Imam al-Ghazali will argue in the Ihya, in the Bab al-Safar, that delving too deeply into mathematics is prohibited. And I know a lot of people have problems with that, but if you look at a lot of what's happening on this planet that's so destructive, it's because of this knowledge that has come out. I mean, Muslims use mathematics for very positive things, like building buildings and finding the Qibla and determining the prayer times. They would never have used it to build bombs that could annihilate whole populations. So now we have to deal with the fact that, you know, the men that invented the nuclear bomb were all, you know, wizards, really. I mean, they were wizards. And some of them were involved in black magic. This is simply a fact. So he says the second reason is that it harms the person himself. And he says, like astrology. Learning astrology. And he said there's an aspect of astrology that, because these people did not distinguish between astrology and astronomy. So ilm al-nujum meant astronomy and astrology, because every astrologer has to be an astronomer. You know, astrology is based on the science of astronomy. You have to know where the planets are. You have to know what constellation the moon is in, the sun is in, and this is all done through astronomy. So he's saying, Allah says, "Ash-shamsu wal-qamaru bi-husban." We put the sun and the moon in reckoned courses that you can determine them. وَالْقَمَرَ قَدَّرْنَاهُ مَنَازِلَ حَتَّى عَادَ كَالْعُرْجُونِ الْقَدِيمِ. There are 28 manzila of the moon. So it throughout the month it will go into these manazil. And then the second are the ahkam. And he's saying this is learning. He said this is like a doctor uses the pulse diagnosis, and Dr. Yang's an expert in that pulse diagnosis. So he can determine from pulse diagnoses illnesses. Western medicine abandoned this type of pulse diagnoses. But the Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Greek medicine was heavily reliant on the diagnostic technique of pulse diagnosis. So he says that astrology is akin to using the doctor who uses pulse diagnoses, that looking at the Sunnah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, because there's a relationship between comets, between phenomena. Like in the Christian tradition, Jesus, there was a comet that indicated his coming. The Prophet mentioned about certain celestial events that will happen before the end of time, the joining of the sun and the moon in mid-month, which would only occur during a polar shift. And then, because as the poles shift, you could get an eclipse at that time, and then you'll have the sun rising in the west if you had a polar shift as well. So Allahu Alam. But the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرْ فَأَمْسِكُوا. If you mention the qadar, just don't delve into it. فَأَمْسِكُوا. Just believe in it and don't go delve into it. You have free will, you're accountable for your free will, but there's also qadar. And he said, وَإِذَا ذُكِرَتِ النُّجُومِ فَأَمْسِكُوا. And if the stars are mentioned, just be quiet about it. And this is, there are three positions traditionally amongst the scholars about this science. Some of them said that astrology all of them were in agreement that predictive astrology is haram. They were all in agreement about that. But what they disagreed about was it a science or not? And most of the ulama considered it to be a science, that it was a science. Some of them didn't, but most of them did. Newton was a very serious astrologer. He was also a brilliant scientist, but somebody asked him, he asked Halley, who was the astronomer, he asked Halley, who Halley's Comet is named after, whether he believed in astrology or not. And he said, absolutely not, it's just hogwash. He said, have you ever studied it? And he said, no. And he said, well, then how could you make a judgment like that? Because he said, I've studied it and I don't think that it's hogwash. So, but our tradition is to avoid those things. And he said, وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ أَصْحَابِي فَأَمْسِكُوا. If my companions are mentioned, be silent. If you don't have something good to say, be silent about the Sahaba, because they're his Sahaba. Some of them made mistakes, undeniably, but they were his Sahaba, and so we're just silent about them, the ones that made the mistakes. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم أخاف على أمتي بعدي ثلاث حيف الأئمة وإيمان بالنجوم وتكذيب بالقدر. I fear from my community three things after me: the tyranny of its leaders, faith in the stars, and denying the qadar. And Umar ibn al-Khattab said, learn from the stars what you guide yourselves by, and then amsiku, just don't delve into it, the stars. So that's a science that he considers to be harmful, and you shouldn't study it. And then he says, that there's also things that are no benefit. So learning, going too much, delving into something, learning the strange things. Like there's people that learn strange aspects of grammar and they don't know basic grammar. There's people that learn strange things about fiqh and they don't know basic fiqh. So like people that before they learn fiqh, they learn ilm al-khilaf, things like that.